I've worked at Denny's for years. A prestigious restaurant, they call it. And yes, it's known for its exquisite cuisine, candlelit ambience, and the promise of an unforgettable dining experience. But let me tell you, there are things that happen here, things that only I have witnessed, things that still haunt me every night as I lock up. My name is Jack, and I'm the head waiter at this establishment. When I first started, it seemed like the perfect job. My tips were generous, and regulars were kind-hearted, but it didn't take long for me to realize there was more to Denny's than meets the eye. It was a cold winter's evening when it all began. The restaurant was bustling with guests, each table adorned with glistening silverware and candles flickering softly. The warmth of the place was palpable, a stark contrast to the freezing wind outside. It was just another night, or so I thought. As I moved between tables, taking orders and ensuring everyone's comfort, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It started sudsai, like a shadow creeping up from the depths of my mind. I dismissed it as exhaustion and carried on. Around 9 p.m., a couple entered the restaurant, and they were different from our usual clientele. The man, tall and lean, had a peculiar aura about him. They sat in a dimly lit corner, a spot that always gave me the creeps. I approached their table with my best professional smile, but the closer I got, the more I felt that inexplicable sense of unease. They ordered steak, rare, and wine, and as I scribbled their request in my notebook, I noticed their eyes. They were entirely black, pupils swallowing the whites whole. I blinked, convinced it was a trick of the light, but when I looked again, their eyes were back to normal, just like anyone else's. Chalking it up to fatigue, I sent their order to the kitchen. Time passed, and their food arrived. They ate in silence, almost as if they were ignoring the world around them. It wasn't unusual for couples to be lost in their own world at Denny's, but there was something about these two that sent shivers down my spine. As the evening wore on, the couple remained seated long after the other patrons had left. I couldn't help but steal glances at them. They seemed unaffected by the cold and the late hour, locked in some deep conversation. Then, out of nowhere, they both turned their heads in unison and stared at me. Their eyes were once again entirely black, and this time there was no denying it. My heart pounded in my chest as I hurried to serve another table, but their gaze followed me. I could feel their eyes burning into my back, a malevolent presence that refused to let go. When they finally left, I couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. I watched them through the window as they disappeared into the night, wondering what had just happened. Days turned into weeks, and I couldn't get that eerie couple out of my mind. I started noticing other strange things too. The candles on the table seemed to flicker with a mind of their own, casting unsettling shadows that danced on the walls. The paintings that adorned the restaurant's walls, once exquisite works of art, took on a sinister quality in the dim light, their subjects' eyes following me as I moved about. My colleagues dismissed my concerns as paranoia, but I knew something was wrong. One night, as I was closing up, I heard whispers coming from the kitchen. Soft, indistinct voices that sent shivers down my spine. I cautiously approached, my footsteps echoing in the empty restaurant. When I entered the kitchen, the whispers stopped, but the air was thick with an oppressive silence. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I checked all the corners, even the pantry, but there was no one there. As I turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of something in the corner of my eye, a shadowy figure darting out of sight. I spun around, but there was nothing there. I tried to convince myself that it was just my imagination, but deep down, I knew it was real. I became obsessed with finding answers. I started researching the history of Denny's, hoping to uncover some dark secret that would explain the strange occurrences. It was then that I stumbled upon a newspaper article from years ago. The article spoke of a fire that had consumed the building that now housed Denny's. It was a devastating blaze that had claimed several lives. Among the casualties were a man and a woman, their identities unknown. Their bodies were never recovered. The more I dug, the more the pieces fell into place. It seemed that the couple who had dined here that fateful night were the same ones who had perished in the fire. But how could that be? How could they be alive and dining in the restaurant? I decided to confront the owner, Mr. Denny himself. He was an enigmatic man, rarely seen in the restaurant, but I had to know the truth. I scheduled a meeting with him, my nerves fraying as the day approached. When the day arrived, I entered Mr. Denny's office, a dimly lit room filled with antique furniture and strange, otherworldly artifacts. He sat behind a massive mahogany desk, his eyes hidden beneath heavy shadows. I wasted no time blurting out everything I had witnessed, the whispers, the shadows, the eerie couple. Mr. Denny listened in silence, his face expressionless. When I finished, he finally spoke, his voice like gravel scraping against stone. "Jack, you have glimpsed things that should remain hidden. Denny's is not just a restaurant, it's a place of secrets, a nexus between worlds."
My heart pounded in my chest as he continued.
He explained that Denny's had been built upon the ruins of an ancient cult's temple, a place where rituals of unimaginable darkness had taken place. The fire had been an attempt to cleanse the place, but it had only succeeded in trapping the souls of those who had died within its walls. "The couple you saw," Mr. Denny said, "they are not alive, and they are not dead. They are trapped between worlds, forever bound to this place." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was beyond anything I could have imagined. Mr. Denny offered me a choice, to leave Denny's and forget everything I had seen, or to stay and become a guardian of sorts, tasked with keeping the malevolent forces at bay. I chose to stay. I don't know if it was the fear of what might happen if I left, or the need to confront the mysteries that now surrounded me. But as I left Mr. Denny's office, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just made a deal with the devil. My life at Denny's took on a new purpose. I learned rituals and incantations, ways to appease the restless souls that dwelled within its walls. I patrolled the restaurant at night, armed with candles and salt, warding off the shadows that seemed to grow stronger with each passing day. The couple, the ones with the black eyes, they became my focus. I tried to communicate with them, to understand their plight, but their presence remained elusive. They would appear, their eyes void of life, and then vanish into the darkness. As time passed, I got more adept at my duties, but the restaurant itself seemed to change. The ambiance, once warm and inviting, became suffocating, as if the very walls were closing in on me. The whispers grew louder, their words still indistinct, but filled with an undeniable malevolence. One night, as I patrolled the restaurant, I saw something that chilled me to my core. In the mirror that adorned the wall, I saw the reflection of the couple standing behind me. Their eyes were black as pitch, and they reached out towards me, their fingers brushing my shoulder. I spun around, but there was nothing there. It was as if they had never existed, yet I could still feel the coldness of their touch on my skin. I realized then that I was no longer in control. The forces that had taken hold of Denny's were beyond my understanding, and they were closing in on me. I was a prisoner in my own sanctuary. Desperation set in. I begged Mr. Denny for answers, but he offered none. He simply told me that I had made my choice, and now I must live with it. One night, as I locked up the restaurant, I felt a presence behind me, a cold breath on the back of my neck. I turned slowly, dreading what I might see. The couple stood before me, their eyes blacker than ever. They reached out, their fingers entwining with mine. I tried to pull away, but their grip was like a vice. Then, Enyin, Isin, they whispered, their voices a haunting melody that echoed through the restaurant. "Welcome to Denny's, Jack. You're one of us now." And with that went into the darkness, and I became just another shadow in the haunted halls of Denny's, forever bound to a fate I could never escape. So, if you ever find yourself in a prestigious restaurant called Denny's, remember this tale. And if you see a couple with eyes as black as night, run as fast as you can, for you may be the next to join the shadows that dwell within its walls.